What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Jonathan's Coin Toss. It's been a little while, a few weeks or so. I didn't want it to drag to a month. It's been a busy few weeks, been a lot going on. I've been streaming a bunch on Twitch, uploading content on YouTube, or at least beginning to upload more content, and amongst other things. And it's that time of the year, Towards the end of the year, things get a little hectic all over the place. We're all still dealing with COVID and things being closed and stuck at home and everything else. But I'm back, and I'm excited to bring the show back and to talk to all of you today about next gen gaming. The new consoles have arrived: the Xbox Series S and X, along with the PlayStation 5. So I will be discussing today which console I have purchased and currently have in the house, and who I think will win this gen. I also have a bunch of questions I've been asked about each console, what's the difference, and here and there. And many of you have already probably figured that out or seen what are the differences, what's better, and everyone's got their own opinion. I have mine, and I'll be sure to tell you guys all about that opinion today. So let's get things started, shall we? Before we continue, here's Chelsea to tell you about Anchor.
If you don't know what Anchor is, it's an app that is basically the easiest way to make a podcast. And the best part is it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast, so you don't necessarily have to worry about doing all of that. It goes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other one that you could possibly think about. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So even if you are listening it to you by yourself, you can get paid from it. Everything you need to make a podcast is all in one place in the app on your phone or desktop. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
All right, so back at it once again. I'm very excited about this gen that's been launched. So the Xbox Series S and X released on the 10th of November, just less than a week ago, and the PS5 released on November 12th. And I believe it'll be releasing elsewhere around the world soon. So that, look out for that for PS5. But yes, it's been fun. Like I mentioned, I've been busy the last few weeks or so, a lot going on, but best believe I've been all over social media. I've been asked a ton of questions from friends and family and even people on Twitter and elsewhere. What I think is going to happen is gen. What's the difference? Is it too soon? Many questions, and I'll get to that here in this episode. But yeah, so it's been just under a week for both consoles, as I mentioned. The Xbox Series S and the X. So I guess we could start with that. As far as the difference between those two consoles, it's very simple. The Xbox Series S is the digital version, all digital, no discs needed. Everything is just, you simply download it and you play. That is the way it is these days. I'm an old school gamer, so I always prefer having physical copies of my games. And you're gonna laugh at me in a few minutes here when I tell you what's going on with me and my decision making as far as these current consoles. And so, of course, that's the S. The X is although it's a small console, it's bigger than the S. They're both really small. Some of the smaller consoles that were released ever, actually. I kind of compared them to the GameCube in terms of just overall size. GameCube was tiny, if you remember that, how that looked back then in 2002 when that launched. So yeah, the X is pretty similar in size, but as far as power, the Xbox Series X is of course superior to the S. Pretty much, there are many things we can talk about under the hood, which I don't normally do or care for, honestly, because honestly, all the consoles released this gen are powerful. But if you want the highest, like 4K capable gaming, if you care about all that, you would have to go with the Xbox Series X as opposed to the S. The S doesn't it's powerful, but it's not as powerful as the X. The gaming aspect of it is powerful. It's just more of the of just how it looks overall on your TV. So if you don't have a 4K TV and that's your decision, you're like, oh, I don't have a 4K TV, so what's it to me? You can just simply go with the Xbox Series S. But the only thing is you have to stick to digital only if you're into that or if you don't care. And then with the X, of course, it does have a disk drive. So the Xbox Series X, what the neat thing about that is that you can play your Xbox One games right on your Series X. You have your discs, you just pop it in and you play. And even for older games, they're gonna look great. Again, especially if you have a 4K TV. If you don't, if you at least have a standard, HD TV, which are really low these days, especially now with Black Friday coming up. If you have a TV like that, the S is going to look amazing, and even the X will look amazing. So both consoles will look fantastic, even with older games. And then when you start playing the newer games, they just run faster. They look great. Everything's just, as far as speed and just sheer power, yeah, this gen is all about that for both of those consoles. And there's more, like I said, under the hood. If you're into all that, there are a bunch of facts and everything on Twitter. And if you go straight to like Microsoft's website, they'll break down both consoles, the differences and all that. If you're confused, I have had some parents, fellow parents, ask me, for their little ones, what should I get? My son or daughter or whatever children they have, and I asked them that: do you care for discs or not? That right off the bat saves you $100 because the Xbox Series S is $299, and that's before taxes, of course, and all that. And if you're having it shipped to you, and then the Series X is $499. So $200 difference. Actually, I'm sorry, I said $100 difference. $200 difference. So it's a big difference, especially these days. Money is money, no matter how big or small, right? So if you're trying to save money and you don't care about physical copies of your video games, go digital. And if you have little ones, odds are they're not going to care if their games are in 4K. They'll probably hear about it. They'll probably see in the box it says 4K and 8K capabilities and all that. They're not going to care. If they're playing Minecraft and games like that for kids and adults too, but that sort of game, some games you won't see a major difference. And even if you did, it's all about the fun. The fun that the games are as opposed to graphics. So I tend to see more people like my age, my friends and other people that do care more about what's under the hood this generation, which is one of the things that I've been asked about as far as what's the difference between this gen and even just the previous gen or gens before that. I've never seen, I think with every console release, of course, you're always going to hear the power, what's different, what's under the hood, as they say. But between this console and the launch of just 7 years ago, less than a decade, not too terribly far away, but the years did fly by. I've heard so much about the sort of like keywords they say that trend, the sexy words, if you will, teraflops, CPU, GPU, 4K, instant mode, all sorts of terms like that, right? I've seen them all trend all over the place on social media. So what that simply means is it's good that it's heading that way. I think it's for me, it's pros and cons. It's good that, more people care about specs and what's the console they're putting their hard-earned money into, what's in there, what makes it so great, why should I upgrade now, should I wait? I think that the consoles being as great as they are, as close as possible, and in some cases better than PC gaming. Everyone knows PC gaming is overall the best package for looks and just, again, power, speed, turning it on and off, how fast and how well your games run. So with these consoles, this is the closest you can get to a PC without having to pay, an arm and a leg for a PC. I'm a PC gamer as well, and I got one of the I don't want to say lower end, but I didn't get something that's thousands of dollars. But the thing I have is a monster. The PC rig I have is a monster, right? But with these consoles, you can just by reading the specs, you can see that they're right up there with PC gaming. So if you're ever worried about that, should I go the PC route? You don't necessarily have to. You can hold off for a little bit. check out these current consoles, the Xbox Series X and S and the PS5. And then go from there. See if you're going to be into all that and possibly upgrade down the road to a PC. So that's the biggest thing. Now, that's the pro. The con, to me, in my opinion, is that I'm all about the games. When you're a gamer, you care about the games. I'll rewind a bit to the 90s when I was 4, 5 years old. We were all about Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, right? Everyone knew about both consoles. Whether you owned one, you had a relative or a friend, you would go over to their house or whatever. You knew they had one, you'd play it. Back then, it was about the games, right? Sonic was on Genesis, Super Mario on Super Nintendo, right? Those are the juggernauts of yesteryear. So myself and millions of others went the Super Nintendo route. Super Mario World, my first game ever owned. Super Nintendo, first ever console I ever owned. And that was thanks to my dad. Thanks, Pops, if you're listening. But Sega Genesis was nothing to laugh at. That was a great console as well. I played that console, right? But the point is, with both consoles, it was about the games. We knew what the graphics were going to be at that time in the early to mid 90s, right? We knew what every game was looking like, going to look like. You saw it in magazines, saw it in commercials, whatever. But we, as kids, never cared for the power. We didn't care about 8-bit, 16-bit, anything else after that. Now, I'm sure the older folks might, say, well, we did. But it wasn't. If you go back in time and read old articles and things like that, you don't see it talked about as much as it is now in 2020, which is not necessarily a bad thing again. But for me, I'm more about games. I make my decision on which console I'm going to get when a new gen launches based on the games. So fast forward a little bit now to 2013, 7 years ago. I remember choosing between PS4 and Xbox One. I went the Xbox One route because of a classic game I played back in the 90s and on Super Nintendo, which was Killer Instinct, my favorite fighting game ever, along with Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. So I had said it for months and months and months. When I saw Killer Instinct debut at E3 that year or the year before, whatever year it was, when I saw the logo and the music play, I just went insane. I remember watching, I think some of my buddies were like at an Xbox party, I believe it was. And we were just I was going crazy. I was like, oh my gosh. Right at that moment that music played, the logo showed on the Xbox E3 conference or what have you, I already knew Xbox One was the way to go. I didn't have to see anything at all about PS4, which I had already seen bits and pieces. I already knew what games, essentially, what titles were going to be coming out down the road. Ratchet and Clank and God of War and other games, many other games, right? Uncharted. I already knew, since this is a game I loved when I was a kid, I don't care about specs. I don't care if PS4 is more powerful. I don't care if Xbox One is more powerful. I didn't care about the Xbox Kinect that came with the Xbox One, if you remember that. That was just irrelevant to me. I just wanted to play this game that I loved, and I was pretty much banking on it to do well. I was hoping it did well, and it did. It's a great game. And if you have Xbox, Game Pass, you can play it there. Just simply download it, install it, PC and console. But anyway, so that's for me. I'm all about the games. The specs to me is like, it's about the games. If the games are not fun but look great, what's the point? You're gonna get a shiny brand new car with no engine in it or a crappy engine? No, right? You want to get something that looks good, whatever, but you want it to run well. You want it to, which is great about the consoles now. They're so powerful. They're going to run well. They're going to last you years. They should. Although they have been having some issues here, but I'll get to that as well in this episode. But yeah, again, it's about the titles. What games are coming out? Of course, you won't know every game. Some games are sleepers, are hidden or yet to be known blockbusters that come out down the road. But if you already know what games are coming out, that just helps you make a decision quicker in my eyes. And that's what happened with me in 2013. Killer Instinct, Xbox One, bam. PS4, I did ultimately get about a year and a half or so later. But yeah, so that's just a few little tidbits there. A couple of questions. I'll go over some more questions I've been asked. But let me talk about PS5. So PS5 also had two consoles, but the only difference would be one is digital and one includes the disk drive, of course, to put your discs in. There is a $100 difference. So the digital edition was $399 before taxes, and then the disc $499, just as the Xbox Series X. So $100 difference there. Both the same size. The PS5 is huge, the biggest console right now. I think in terms of just length alone, the longness, I'm pretty sure I'd pretty much bet money, and I haven't looked that up, believe it or not. But if not, definitely top 2, top 3, whatever. But that's the difference there. And for those that asked, here's another question I'm going to answer. If you haven't already seen me stream on Twitch or read some of my tweets or whatever, I did indeed purchase a PS5. So the PS5 is the route that I chose to open things up this gen, starting here in 2020. And the shocker in that is not that I've been a PS gamer since PS1, and I've been an Xbox gamer since the first Xbox console as well. So I've said it before in previous podcasts. I've tweeted it out, put it on Facebook. I'm not a fanboy. That to me is boring. Where's the fun in that? I also own the Nintendo Switch. I don't have a preference. I don't stick to one console. I kind of want to enjoy everything else out there. I even got my PC rig, like I mentioned. So, but yeah, I did go the PS5 route, and I went digital. That's the shocker. As a 31-year-old old school gamer in me, I never thought I'd say that because I'm a huge fan. Again, as I mentioned earlier, of keeping my discs or cartridges. I still have my Game Boy Color from the late 90s and a bunch of cartridges, a bunch of Pokemon, Spider-Man, other bunch of games in there. So it was something that I didn't take long to decide on. My fiance really, this is a funny story. My fiance is the one that kind of pushed me to get a PS5. And she had seen the stuff I've been posting that I would go the digital route. I'm all about, as I get older, I guess, less clutter. I have a bunch of like collector's editions, which I don't buy too many collector's editions of games anymore. They kind of like are pretty much the same. You get like an action figure or you get a statue or something. It's like I don't see anything really original anymore or all that often. And they're really pricey as well. Now they're really ridiculous. Back then you can get a collector's edition for $10-$20 extra. Now it's like $300, sometimes $1,000. It's insane. But anyway, so my fiance is pretty much the one that said, I had seen that they went on sale in September, the PS5s and Xboxes. And I was like, well, here's one. I was just testing it out because obviously with everything going on, everything's online these days. No one's going out or barely going out these days. So once they announce that these consoles will be available online for pre-order, you got to figure more people than ever are going to be home and having the opportunity to secure a pre-order for whatever console they prefer. So honestly, I wasn't in a rush to jump into this next gen day one. I was going to wait at least a year, half a year, just to see, what comes out and this and that. Everyone always has that, and in my eyes, like a myth, like, oh, don't get it day one, bad things happen. That's not true. It does happen, but it's not going to happen to everyone. But it does happen. It can happen to a car. It can happen and so many other things you buy day one, right? So it's like anything else. So that I didn't have fear of that. I mean, that's just kind of silly. Like, oh, don't get it day one. Your console will do this. It'll break down. Yeah, you really think that these companies are intentionally just... I know some cases they kind of rush things, but you're going to get something good. And if something breaks down, it is unfortunate. It doesn't mean it's common. It doesn't mean it happens to everyone. So that wasn't my fear. But it was just more of, as we head into it, the way the year's been going, and it's kind of like, it just didn't have that buzz. There was no E3. I mean, you had conferences online, but it wasn't your traditional E3. It wasn't a big, extravagant event and show to really pump up and get you hype, right? So I didn't feel that, and I barely saw anything new on either console. So anyway, my fiance sees me. She's right there next to me, Chelsea, and I see Target had a deal. So on Twitter, I clicked the link just to see, out of curiosity, how quick could I get a console into the cart. Literally, this is how it went down. Got the PS5 digital into the cart. Because like I said, whichever console I was gonna get, um, I mean, when it came to the Xbox, I probably would have had to have gotten the Series X because I have a bunch of Xbox One discs. But I was thinking even for that digital. Um, but leading up to that day, when I saw the PS5 on sale on Twitter at Target, clicked the link. I already knew at that point I was gonna get a PS5 simply because of the Spider-Man game coming out, and I'll talk about the games here in a second for both consoles. But I answer, I click the link, and I add the PS5 digital to the cart, and lo and behold, I was able to buy it. It didn't say, oh, it didn't crash, it didn't freeze, it didn't load forever. I was like, babe, check this out. I can actually, do this. And that's how it went down. I asked her, should I? What do you think? And I was like, I was just ready to hit X and just get out of there, remove from cart. And she goes, no, get it. It's going to be from me. And it's going to be your essentially birthday gift. And because it was a few months away. So I was like, well, since if you insist. That's how that went down. It was very quick, nothing dramatic. So she pretty much kind of pushed me into next gen. I honestly wasn't going to. So at the end of the day, yeah, I found the link, clicked it. But my fiance ultimately did get me this PS5. And if she had not said, get this PlayStation now, I would have just waited a year, not even really, care as a gamer. When you're a gamer, you see these new consoles coming out, you want to get your hands on something. You know what I mean? Which leads me to my next thing now, the games. So she already knew PlayStation was the way to go whenever that was, a year, a few months, whatever. So that's, like I said, with that story, she already knew that's what was going on. I didn't even bother looking for an Xbox. The reason being was the games. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I did get Spider-Man Miles Morales. And other than that, for both consoles, there aren't many exclusives right now. That's exclusive to PS5 and PS4, which that changed later. It was strictly only PS5, but it's still just a Sony game. So if you have PS4, you can get Miles Morales. If you have PS5, you can get Miles Morales. So I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. If you don't already know, huge Marvel fan and DC, but Spider-Man is my boy for Marvel. For DC is Batman. So that was pretty much this gen for me personally. This was my Killer Instinct. Remember the Killer Instinct story I mentioned with Xbox One from 7 years ago that made me get Xbox One? Well, this happened again, but this time it flipped to the PS5, to Sony's end now, because they have Spider-Man. Now, they had Spider-Man 2 years ago. Great game there. This is sort of like, it's not a sequel per se. It's not Spider-Man 2, but it's Spider-Man Miles Morales. It's his and his under his mask, if you will, for this game. But it does continue the story from Spider-Man 2 years ago. Now, it may not be as long, but it's still a beautiful game. New York City looks crazy, insane, so real. The snow, all the effects, a lot of differences between the two games. And I'm roughly, I'll say like a quarter of the way through. I streamed a bunch last night. You could check it out on Twitch, twitch.tv/The Champ Cave. But as far as games, yes, again, just to go back a little bit, that is why I chose PS5 to start things off. Since I was going to get it, I already knew Spider-Man, no matter when I would get a PS5, would be the first game I would get. And there are others. I'm going to get Assassin's Creed Valhalla some points, NBA 2K21. But those are games that are available on both consoles, and some of them on all consoles, including Switch, some, not all, and PC. So there's a lot of that going on with those games, third-party games. But for exclusives to consoles, there aren't many. Halo Infinite was set to release at launch for Xbox Series X and S. However, that didn't happen. It was delayed. Many other games were delayed, but as far as exclusive titles, first party, that was delayed to sometime 2021. would I have changed my mind if that was coming out at launch? No. Still would have gone the Spider-Man route. Still would have gone PS5 first. But just other than that, there are virtually no exclusives like juggernaut blockbuster titles that are out now for Xbox Series X and S. So that is kind of like what, in my eyes, hurts Xbox, hurts Microsoft. They're still going to sell consoles. They'll still do well. But it does hurt them. Even if it's a little bit more, it'll be in Sony's favor. Spider-Man is popular around the world. People will do what I did and get a PS5 just because of Spider-Man alone. And then other games down the road like God of War, which is set to release in 2021, barring any delays. Horizon Zero Dawn, like the sequels coming out, Forbidden West. You have games like The Last of Us that are PS exclusives, Uncharted games down the road, Ratchet and Clank, and many more that haven't even been announced yet, but you can imagine, hopefully we get a Jack and Daxter down the road. But with Microsoft, again, going back to them, Halo is their baby. Halo's what put Xbox on the map. And if you don't have your new Halo title that's been talked about for several years, day one, as you promised, which in the gaming industry promises are these days, especially breaking left and right due to COVID and everything else, it happens. It's not a good look. It hurts you. And now it's like, okay, well, I don't have Halo Infinite now if I'm a Halo fan, and I'm a Halo fan. I'm not a huge Halo fan, but I am a Halo fan. I play them all. Now it's like, okay, I'm going to get a brand new console. I'm going to spend $500 or $300, whatever console you get with taxes and all that. And it's like, okay, what new game for me? What new game am I playing? Yes, you can play old games from the original Xbox. As far as digital, you can't put the original Xbox game disc in your console. So don't do that. People have been doing stuff like that with the recent gen. Don't do that. Xbox 360 games can be played on your Series X. Those include discs, and then Xbox One games, of course, Xbox Series X, the new games. So you can play all those great games. All those older games will run better. Some of them will look even better. Everything will load better. That's great. That's fantastic. But you have to ask yourself, is it worth $500? Is it worth $300? A lot of people will say yes. You'll probably tweet me or message me here or what have you and let me know. Yeah, it's worth it. And I agree. I get to a certain degree, I can agree with what you're saying. You want to have a smoother experience. My Xbox One, my launch Xbox One console actually died. I had the black screen of death, some sort of HDMI issue. I tried everything. My fiance and I, we took the whole thing apart, cleaned it out, did everything you could possibly do. In and out. Different cables, this and that. I'm not going to send it for repairs. It's too late in the game as far as the gen is concerned for that. So I'm definitely not doing that. But I'll be getting a new one soon. So that's beside the point. But when you have so many games that you're going to play again, it's great for your library. You can go back and play so many great games on your new consoles and look great and load fast. But where's the new experience? When you get a new console, you want to experience something new, a new look, perhaps a new controller, which I also get to that in a second. It's pretty much the same controller, mind you. So it's like everything's virtually the same, just more powerful, faster. Great. But for me, I can't justify spending that much money, even if it was the S, to continue to play the same games until a new first-party title launches. That's just exclusively on Xbox. Now, of course, you have people say, well, I can at least play the new games that have come out, third-party games. That's true. NBA 2K, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Cyberpunk is going to be coming out the next month, barring any more delays. Been delayed like 4 times already, whatever it is. So those are all great points. But I'm all about exclusives. If it's just I can play this game here and there, I've even got my PC. I can play a bunch of those games on my PC. I wouldn't even need either console. That's pretty much another reason why I was going to avoid the next gen console launch, because I had my PC. I figured I could talk to my boys on Xbox via the app on the computer here, and I've got my PS app as well. I get chat with people there, so it's like whatever. But if that's all you have as far as the games, well, that's not good enough for me, in my opinion. But not everyone cares. Everyone has their own way of thinking, so that's perfectly fine. But when I get asked that, that's virtually my answer, and more condensed form, I guess. Better, easier explanations. Just what games are there for me to buy that are new for a new experience? Now they finally have new features on the console, such as I like the little things like dynamic themes, which started on PlayStation 3. The themes in the background don't just sit there; they actually move and all that. You can hear music, things like that. So it's cool little thing that spices up your living room or man cave or she shed or whatever you want to call it that your console's in, right? Well, Xbox Series X and S do have that, so that's a neat feature amongst other things too. I won't go over everything. This podcast will be several hours, but things like that they've added. They made the consoles better. Obviously, that's a given. Um, but as far as going back to the controllers, the Xbox Series X and S controllers are virtually the same. They just added a third button on the controller, which is the share button, which Sony already had that on PS4. And now Xbox has that as well. Same console, same controller rather. They've always had a great controller, which is great. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But with that being said, Sony is also trying to get on the PC craziness too. They're trying to add some of their games to PC down the road. They've already added a couple. So we'll see. That might eventually just kind of make it seem like why get any console? I don't want to say it'll ever die as far as buying a console is concerned. It's just tradition, right? Every few years or so, you get there's a new console coming out and you want to get it. And I don't see Nintendo racing the PC. So if Sony and Microsoft, let's just say hypothetically, were to go PC only or heavily on PC, right, and less console, Nintendo's still out there. I think they're always gonna have physical, hardware. One example I've given to people when they ask me about that, do I ever see consoles dying entirely? It can happen, but it would have to be that everyone wants to go digital only. It doesn't mean you have to own a PC. What they can do is go like Roku or that like the Fire Stick, what is it, the Cube or whatever it's called, stuff like that. That you'll buy like a small piece of hardware, and I guess essentially it'll still be a console, right? But it's not going to be disc based. It's going to be just simply you're streaming content on there, a la, like Netflix or something like that. Or just simply you buy a small piece of hardware. It won't be as big as the stuff we have now, consoles. It'll be something you just simply download games onto it. PS Now is PlayStation's Game Pass, the way Xbox has their Game Pass, and you can stream games there. You don't have to download them. You can for certain titles, but you can stream. So those kind of things have already begun. Maybe one. I think Microsoft would probably do it first, but maybe Microsoft just goes. They've already gone smaller. What's to say they won't go really tiny, as small as like that Cube I mentioned, or something like Roku, just a controller and a little piece of hardware, if that, and then you plug it in and then you stream games or download or both. Things could change. I never say never anymore. I feel like I can't say it's gonna die, but someone like me, I've always said I'll never get, I'll never stop buying physical games, and here we are. I've got a PS5 digital edition, and things can change within a few years, 6, 7, 8 years or whatever. So we'll see if that happens. It's always a good question. It's always one of those, like, when you're chatting with your buddies, as far as gaming, what if this happens? Can you see this happening? So we'll have to see what happens there. I don't have a crystal ball. I just think that's where it's going. It's pretty clear that's where it's going. Everyone's kind of heading towards the PC route. With a PC, you don't even have disk drives on some PCs, or most of them these days, especially gaming ones. Some do, most of them don't. And like mine doesn't. I can't put a disc anywhere. So everything I play, I'm downloading. Just got to make sure you have good internet connection and have plenty of space on your PC. And you play. And you can use your Xbox controller on your PC. I've read conflicting reports that you can use your DualSense on PC and you can't, or at least certain features aren't available. So I have to test that out one of these days. But you can use Xbox controllers on your PC via Bluetooth, of course. So there you go. You can just have an Xbox controller and not even need a console, just a controller. It already begins. It's already begun. So that can happen. Microsoft might just be this gen just focusing on Game Pass and see how that goes. I mean, $299 for a next gen console, although it's not completely as powerful as the Series X, that's pretty great. Great price. $299. My gosh. Some older consoles were a little bit more than that. So Game Pass, you pay monthly, and then you have hundreds of games from all Xbox gens, which is the good thing. That's the good thing I have to give Microsoft the edge to. Now, I don't think at all Microsoft's library of games is better than Sony's. No, Sony's been around longer. They have way bigger, juggernaut titles all time as far as all time is concerned. But Xbox, knowing that they have games all the way back to the original one that you can play on Game Pass or purchase or what have you, that's tremendous. I think that's a big deal. I think it needs to be talked about more. And hey, they're doing it. They're banking on that. They're saying we're going to make one console extremely cheap and affordable. And here you go. Here's Game Pass. It doesn't have every game ever, of course, but it has all of their first-party games. And don't forget, they've recently purchased Bethesda amongst other companies. So games like Fallout and Oblivion and games like that will be on there. And of course, should be exclusive, I would imagine. I'm pretty sure they will be. For Xbox, which is a huge blow to Sony. We'll get to that in another podcast in the future once we have more details, ironed out. But yeah, there's so many ways you can go with it. It's just, at the end of the day, I just tell people, you know what, just whatever games you want, just play them. If you get an Xbox Series X because it continues the ecosystem of games you have, that's smart. That's a good deal. If you're like me, you want to try going the other route because of one game or a couple of games or whatever, do that whatever way. Or don't do either. Just wait it out, see what happens. See if they have special edition consoles down the road. That might entice me to get a Series X if they have a cool, maybe like a Halo edition or Gears of War. Gears of War is another favorite franchise of mine. That's what Microsoft lacks. I don't think Microsoft, any of their first-party games have ever even won Game of the Year. Someone let me know if that's true or not. I could be wrong. I have to look into that, but I don't think they have. I'm sure I know Sony has, and I know Nintendo has. I don't think Microsoft has, and that's what hurts them, exclusive titles. So going back to what I was saying a little while ago, Halo Infinite being delayed, that hurts the Series X. I'm sure they would have sold and pushed more consoles. I'm curious to see what the numbers will be in a few months here, the first wave, but it may not be pretty. Only because of, the virus. People are out of jobs or less time working, and that's not really their focus right now. And not having a huge new title to play, why shell out that much money? Why not just say what you got and see what comes down the year? So I have buddies of mine doing that. They're going to wait it out. They're trying to listen to me and other people and what we think and how we're enjoying the consoles. As we wind down, I just want to mention a few of the things I've seen like on Twitter. Tons of videos from both consoles, mostly the Series X as opposed to the S. I haven't seen anything really wrong with the S. Not to say that there aren't any launch issues with the S, but it's been X and PS5s with a disk drive. I've noticed having most of the issues from what I've seen. And of course, one of the first ones was an Xbox overheating on video. You see smoke coming out. That was debunked. It was someone using a vape pen and smoking into it and just putting that effect, that illusion, whatever you want to call it, that the Xbox was overheating and hence caused smoke to come out of it. That was proven to be fake. Not to say that it can't happen. It can happen to anything electronic, right? So if you see that, don't freak out. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Just make sure your console, whatever one you have, is in an area that's open, that has space to breathe, whether it's vertical or horizontal, whichever way you have your console. I've seen PS5s, something on brick, don't turn on after a while, turn off. I've only had it a day. That hasn't happened to me, and I hope it doesn't, of course. Obviously, no one wants that to happen to their console, no matter when, launch or later on. But I have seen that it's scary. And, you see these things, see screen tearing from both consoles, certain games, and just freezing, going through walls, and I mean that happens every game, right? That's nothing new. So it's kind of funny how you see fanboys on social media going at it. I have fun with it. A buddy of mine has fun on there as well. On Twitter, we always tweet each other funny videos of both consoles just going crazy, and then it's not just that; it's just seeing how people react to it. Like, oh, this console sucks, or oh, there you go. Like, come on, this is only a small amount of people that these things are happening to, and some of them are not even real. Also wanted to point out, I don't know, let me know in the mail here in Anchor, or hit me up on another place on social media that I'm on. How do you guys and girls go about your consoles? Do you put them vertical? Do you put them horizontal? I've always been a horizontal guy when it comes to gaming. Vertical, I don't know. I just get nervous about it just tumbling over. Obviously, you gotta be careful where you have it or who's around. If there's kids or you have it in an area that people may knock it down on accident, don't do that. My PS5, I do have it vertical. First time ever I had any of my consoles like physically, like just, I don't want to say permanently because I might change it, but yeah, have it vertical. I've never done that before. I know you could do that way back to I think PS2, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's when it started. Could be wrong. Yeah, I've never really been a fan of that. Like I said, I get nervous of it falling down and me losing my mind. But here we are. I'm looking at it right now. It is vertical, so we're gonna see how that goes. So let me know. You're a vertical fan, horizontal, don't care. You switch it up. Just curious what people. I might have a poll on Twitter soon for that to see how people go about it. For me, it won't affect me. I'll add to that actually. One thing that did scare me was the disc just getting like dislodged or whatever and tilting and just screwing you over. But me having a digital console, I don't have to worry about that since it's digital, so no disc drive. So, and that's another question: Are you a digital fan? Are you gonna go the disc route, the classic route? I see people get nervous about, if everything's digital, I don't really truly own it. I mean, I get what you're saying, but what's gonna happen? Sony's just gonna one day say, "Oh, you know what? We're not gonna support you fans anymore. we don't want you to play our games anymore. So now you can't play them." I mean, the only time I would worry about that is if they say, if you go offline with the console, you can't play your games. Now, granted, some games are like that, mostly multiplayer, but a game like God of War, Uncharted, single-player games, if I can play them offline and never have to go online ever again, I'm cool with that as long as the games work, right? But if I ever hear, like Xbox One was rumored to have been doing back then, 2013, that you had to check in once every 24 hours, if something like that happened, yeah, that'd be pretty annoying, So, thankfully, I don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to worry about that. I don't think I ever will. But those are just some of the questions I'm going over that I've been asked. And like I said, if you have anything else, hit me on Twitter, hit me on YouTube, hit me on here in Anchor. You can listen to this podcast on iHeartRadio as well, and Spotify, here on Anchor, Google and Apple Podcasts. I'm all over the place, and I'm probably like a dozen plus more podcasting platforms. So I'm curious to hear what everyone says. So hopefully soon we have something in the works right now, my buddies and I, to get a YouTube channel going where we're going to have quite a few of us running the channel simultaneously. We're going to all be uploading content from Xbox Series X and S and PS5. So, and other consoles as well. I already have my channel, of course, as I mentioned a few times, youtube.com/KingRios13. Once I have the information on our new channel that we're all going to have, a bunch of us, I'll definitely, of course, let everyone know. And then also, in addition to that, we're going to be doing some podcasts together and maybe some live podcasts too, video podcasts, vodcasts, if you want to call it whatever you want to call it. So we'll be doing that in the very near future, working on it now. And it's exciting. It's fun to do it, the way I'm doing it solo and all that. But when you have a whole group together, I've been trying to convince my buddies, let's do it together. It'll be fun. You got everyone kind of plays different games. Someone maybe sticks to horror games. Someone's on another console I don't own. I'm on a console they don't own. So the channel can really be pretty active daily. And that's what we're working on. So be on the lookout for that. I'll mention that all over social media when it when we have some details on the name and when it's officially going to start up. I also wanted to add, I did do a PS5 unboxing video with my fiance yesterday. So be on the lookout for that on my YouTube channel. But once we get that other channel up and going, I will definitely be uploading that content there. We're also going to have an Xbox Series X unboxing as well. So yeah, a lot of great content coming very soon. I've been trying to get guests here and there. It's just everyone's been all over the place, so it's been a little difficult. I think once, hopefully soon, things get better with this pandemic. Or in November, we're still talking about it. I think I'll be able to get more guests more often that I want to be on here to talk about sports and gaming, pop culture, movies. That's another thing, movies. I mean, Marvel, I got to mention this real quick. Marvel, for the first time in a decade plus, there wasn't a Marvel movie or a new show. Everything's completely wiped out for 2020. Not even Disney Plus shows. They've all been pushed back. The next one will be in January, WandaVision. Just an FYI. But those are things I'm going to be talking about coming up soon in the next few weeks. I'll have a podcast again soon next week. I might have a shorter one, the next few days, just talking about the NFL to give a NFL update. It's been a while. And then the NBA season starts December 22nd, right before Christmas. So I'll be having a podcast about the NBA in the very next couple of weeks or so. Exciting times, and a lot of things to talk about. And hopefully you guys will listen. Please follow, subscribe, and share with all your friends and family and everyone else. Your dogs, your cats, everything, everywhere. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks again for subscribing and following along and supporting. I appreciate that, truly do. And let's see, today's Monday, so next time I'll be streaming on Twitch will be on Wednesday. So again, twitch.tv/TheChampCave. I stream Wednesdays and Fridays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern, a couple of hours. Sometimes I go over that. And there are some days where I'll stream out of nowhere, like a Monday or Tuesday or something that I don't have scheduled. I might add another day to the schedule, to the rotation. But yeah. So anything else, just hit me up on Twitter. That's where I'm most active, at BX_champ. And as always, I will see you all on the flip side. Take care, guys. Are you bored at home listening to the same old podcasts? Looking for something new to listen to? Tired of hearing just my podcast? Do you like fashion? If so, well, I have some news for you. There's a new podcast in town, and it's called Stitch Panda Podcast. My fiancée Chelsea now has her own podcast, and it's about all the goings-on in the fashion world. Follow along as Chelsea talks about her time in the fashion industry, as well as giving fashion tips and tricks. She'll have guests and live podcasts as well. Stitch Panda Podcast is available on many platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and many more. So be sure to follow along.